Hello, everyone. I'm Orlee,
And I'm Noel.
and this is the sixth and final video in our six-part series on how to achieve CMMC compliance.
Final one.
I think we'll find a way to come back. We'll
Probably.
reincarnate ourselves. We'll
I'm
do
sure we
something.
will.
This isn't the end. It's just a momentary end.
It's goodbye for now, but not goodbye forever.
There you go.
There you go.
So video number 6 here is asking the question, how do I know if I need a third party to help me with my compliance journey? So video number 1, just to walk you through this, talked about how to get started with CMMC compliance. Number 2, how do I save money with CMMC? Number 3 was, how do I protect my CUI? Number 4 was, is technology sufficient to protect CUI? And 5, our last video was, what should I do after deploying technology and documentation? The answer there was a self-assessment. And then that brings us very logically, if you go through the steps, to today. Okay, I've done my self-assessment. Should I think about anything else before I go straight to a C3PAO, a third-party assessor, to check on my CMMC compliance? And so this next step is not a requirement, but it is a business decision. That decision is, do I go ahead and involve a partner? There is no regulation saying you have to have a third party help you choose, a third party help you close the gaps. And to be clear here, by third party, we mean a registered practitioner, an RP, an RPO,
A CCP.
Yep. And we just state this more as something that many of our own customers have found helpful. But if you're a customer kind of going through this whole process, what questions should you be asking yourself to determine whether you need a third party or not? Because you're realizing what you really want to do is get to have a C3PAO assess your organization. So Noel, why don't you use that as our starting point and state some of the things people should be considering?
Yeah, so it really is. I mean, we've said this so many times before, and I say this all the time, that this is an answer just like anything else in compliance. It very much depends. It depends on your situation. It depends on, how large or small your organization is. It depends on if you have somebody who can put the level of effort in necessary for this. It depends on if you have somebody who is willing to become a sort of pseudo expert in some of this stuff. If you have all that in-house, then maybe you don't need a consultant. Maybe you're going to be okay. But what if you're the type of company like so many of our customers and so many of those members of the DIB out there, they don't have those things. They don't have somebody who is an IT expert or a compliance expert or what have you. And they don't maybe have anybody who could become one. So, okay, well, what do those people do? Well, then this is your opportunity to think, okay, well, maybe we need to outsource this to one of those different service providers like we talked about, like an RP, an RPO, a CCP, some sort of consulting organization that can help you walk through the steps.
Right. And I think a good qualifying question, let's say you assume that you do need some help. What are the qualifications I should use to, pardon the redundancy, qualify one of these partners?
Absolutely. And that is a huge question because there's so much information in compliance out there. And as we've talked about, oh my gosh, there are so many snake oil salesmen out there, unfortunately, because this is still a sort of moving target in some ways, even though the requirement's been there for a long time. CMMC as a program for certification is still very new. I mean, it's only been a few years. So there's a lot of opportunity for, unfortunately, people to take advantage. There are some very big things you can look for. What a very, very big one is you want to have somebody who has some kind of CMMC credentials. And what I'm talking about is credentials with the Cyber Accreditation Board. So if you go on the Cyber AB's website in their marketplace, you can look up myself and anybody else who has CMMC credentials. If they don't have any CMMC credentials, meaning an RP, they're representing an RPO, they're part of a C3PAO that also does consulting, or they have a CCP or CCA, that's kind of concerning to me if they don't have any of those things. Like one of those things at least would be, I think, the bare minimum. And then past that, you want to actually look at their experience. Do they have experience helping specifically DoD customers? Do they understand the very subtle nuances about the DoD that there are plenty of? Do they get that? Do they understand where you're coming from? A lot of our customers like when there is a consultant that actually has had direct contract work with the DoD. That's also something you can look for, but that's entirely up to you. You also want to make sure that their culture and climate matches yours. Are they going to be very hard pressed on certain things and they're very rigid, whereas your organization's kind of more laid back? That may be a problem possibly, and you could end up having some issues there. So that's something to think about as well. You want to definitely look at the organization as almost an extension of your own at that point, because they are going to be working with all of your internal people. They're going to be talking to internal people, look at your internal systems. They're going to be basically like an employee almost, but for, a very brief period of time. So make sure to look at them that way. Vet them the same way you would an employee doing the position.
Yeah. So you've done your homework. You found someone, but let's also make a reality check. These people are not going to reinstall technologies on your platform, on your organization. What they're going to do is they're going to be kind of a partner who can make suggestions. And so what can they help you with, and what are things that they can't help you with?
That's a great question. And honestly, it's a very interesting one because because of the fact that there is no regulation about consultants when it comes to compliance, specifically with 800-171 and CMMC, it's really whatever the contractor and the external service provider, who in this case would be like an RP, RPO, or CCP, it's whatever they agree to. So, and it's also, this is the big part, and it's how much you want to spend. So you could spend, a relatively, maybe like a few $1,000s to get very high level evaluation. Just tell me thumbs up, thumbs down on the 110, and that's it. You don't tell me you don't recommend anything, nothing. And it goes all the way up to tens of thousands, if not in some cases, hundreds of thousands of dollars for them to do the entire thing for you, because you actually can get some consultants who will do the implementation of technology for you if you pay them for it. But again, this is all very much, it's a business decision to make how far you want to take it.
So what are the types of things typically that a partner will help you with here?
So a lot, like usually in an average sort of situation when you have a consultant involved, they're going to do things like a gap analysis, where is exactly what it sounds like. They look through everything and see where your gaps are. Usually sometimes that's what they start with. Sometimes if you do that yourself and tell them, hey, I already know these gaps, these are what I need help with, I know that, then they'll help you with that. After that, either your internal or external gap assessment, you can decide how much they want to be involved. Do you want them to write your documentation for those items? Do you want them to help you find solutions and implementations that you can do to help address those items you have gaps? Do you need them to do a double check on all the things that you think are perfect already, but you just want them to make really sure? It really runs the gamut of what you can do.
I think one of the things that we were talking about before we started videotaping that we both thought was kind of an interesting way to describe it was that this is a little bit like going to your accountant in March, and if you present, all your deductions, all the charity donations you've made, all the expenses you had, and you have them well organized and say, here, Mr. Accountant or Mrs. Accountant, here's all my information. Please just file it for me. That's going to be a pretty easy conversation, and you're not going to have a huge charge, assuming you don't have an extremely complicated situation.
Right.
Contrast that with, you described it as someone who just hands over the paper
bag. Here's the paper bag. Here's my receipts for the past year. I don't know what kind of order they're in. I don't know what I paid for. I don't know when I paid for it. I don't even know what card most of these are associated with. If I just give you a crumpled up paper bag stacked full of receipts, obviously that's going to take a lot longer to go through than the scenario that you described. And it's going to, of course, cost more money because it's going to be more time for in this case, the accountant.
Right. So, again, when we stated this at the beginning, the whole goal of this exercise is to get you ready for a third-party assessment by a C3PAO, which will get you ready for the Joint Surveillance Voluntary Assessment, the JSVA, so that you can handle CMMC Level 2 data. You can continue to work on your DoD contracts and be a fully fledged member of the DIB. So if working with a third party can get you there faster and save you time, great. If you think that they are not going to add anything other than an additional expense, then they're probably not a good fit for you. And I think that kind of explains the way in the mindset that people should have when they are looking at whether to bring on a partner. And I think we'll leave it there. So as we said, this was the last video in our 6-step video series. And we hope it will help you get started with your compliance program. If you have any questions for Noël, because why would you want to talk to me? You can reach her at compliance@prevail.com. And if you like this series, leave a comment or give us a thumbs up. And we will see you next time.